You've probably seen it all over the internet, right? Well, today, we're going to solve a mystery. Let's put on our detective hats and figure this thing out together.
So, here's the big question. What if I told you that one of the toughest sounding ideas out there is actually built on a giant mistake? A total misunderstanding that has fooled millions of people. I mean, you've seen it, right? In videos, social media posts. This idea of the alpha, the person who's in charge, the strongest one, the leader that everyone else just naturally follows. It's talked about like it's a fact of life.
But where did we even get this idea? Is it based on real science or is it, something else? To find out, we've got to go back to the very beginning. Okay, let's dive into this.
And our investigation starts in a place you probably wouldn't expect. Not with people, but with wolves.
That's right. The term alpha male didn't start by studying humans. It came from a scientist who was studying wolves a long, long time ago. He saw one wolf that seems to be the boss. But, and this is a big but, there was a huge problem with his research.
See, the problem was which wolves he was studying. He was watching a bunch of strangers that were all thrown together in a cage. They were stressed out. They were constantly fighting. I mean, think about it. It's like trying to understand how a normal, loving family works by only watching a bunch of people stuck in a prison yard. In the wild, it's totally different. Wolf packs don't have some big, bad alpha. They're just families. The parents lead the pack together to take care of their kid.
And here is the biggest plot twist of all. The very same scientist who invented the term alpha, he later went out and studied wolves in the wild, realized he'd made a huge mistake, and spent the rest of his life trying to fix it. He was literally telling everyone, hey, that thing I said before, I was wrong.
So, the most important thing to get here is, the whole idea of an alpha wolf came from watching stressed out animals in a zoo. It is not how they actually live in the wild. The alpha wolf isn't really a thing.
Okay, but that brings up a really good question. If the science was wrong, and even the guy who came up with the idea said it was wrong, then why is the idea of the alpha male still so popular? Why is it everywhere?
Well, there are a few big reasons. For one, it gives you a simple answer when life gets complicated. It can also sound really good to people who are feeling a little insecure because it offers this clear path to feeling powerful. And sometimes, an idea just feels true, even if it's not. And yeah, let's be honest, a lot of influencers make a ton of money selling this myth.
You can almost think of it like a really popular ghost story. Even when we know ghosts aren't real, the story is just so spooky and exciting that people can't help but tell it over and over. The alpha myth is kind of the same. It's a simple, dramatic story that's just really easy to repeat. And a huge part of why these myths stick around has to do with our next clue. It's not just the story itself, but how the story gets told. Sometimes, simple ideas get wrapped up in language that's designed to sound super smart, even when it's not really saying much. Okay, imagine a plain, simple cookie. It's like good, solid advice that's easy to understand. But what if someone took that cookie and put it inside this giant, super fancy box with 100 locks and a complicated instruction manual? The cookie hasn't changed, but that fancy box makes it seem way more special than it is. So here's the plain cookie. This is simple, solid advice. Be honest and don't do things that you know are wrong. Pretty easy to get, right?
But that really simple idea can be put in a box that looks like this. I mean, just look at this. How does this picture make you feel? Kind of confused? A little overwhelmed, maybe? It takes a simple thought and makes it look like some incredibly complex secret that only a genius could ever figure out.
And it doesn't stop there. Take a look at these diagrams. They're just full of circles and arrows and weird words like the Dragon of Chaos. They're meant to look so deep and profound, and they are a perfect example of that fancy box technique.
And it's a trick, really. When something is presented in a super complicated way, it makes the speaker seem like a genius, but it can make the person listening feel like they're not smart enough to get it. So instead of asking, wait, what does that actually mean? They just nod along.
Okay, so we've followed the clues, we've cracked the case. What's the big takeaway from our whole investigation? Let's recap our detective work real quick. First, we took this popular idea, the alpha male. Then, we followed the clues all the way back to a mistaken study about wolves in a cage. And finally, we figured out why this ghost story keeps getting told. It's a simple, catchy idea that plays on our insecurities.
But the most important lesson here isn't really about wolves at all. It's about us. People are complicated. We're messy and interesting, and we can't be squeezed into tiny little boxes with labels like alpha or beta. Trying to force ourselves and other people into these boxes can actually be pretty harmful, and it creates all this unnecessary pressure to act a certain way.
So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. What other simple labels do we use that might be hiding a much more complicated, interesting truth? Thanks for coming along on this investigation with us. To delve further, check out the Deep Dive podcast episode on this topic. The link is in the comments.